Hello and welcome to the Positive Future podcast, Positive Future for Health. And today we have the lovely Yannick, who's going to be talking all about nature and connection and healing and all that that's about. So where did we meet? Yannick and I met a couple of years ago, and in a beautiful event. And I came along. There were so many things. It was quite a big event. Um, Into the Wild. It was Into the Wild, wasn't it, Yannick? I think it's Into the Wild. And I came across his stall, and oh my gosh, it was just absolutely beautiful. And he had all these beautiful posters and things. I'll show you a bit later. I'll show you now quickly. I could do that. And there's so many things he was selling on his stall that all he's made everything himself, all about the moon magic. Can you see that? It's crazy, crazy visuals. Moon magic, and another one about women's tree of life, and the wheel of the year, and all. There were loads. He's done so much work, all about nature and about healing and your connection to it. Very organized, I thought, very businesslike, and had everything beautifully organized, but such a peaceful, natural soul. And that's why I'm so thrilled that he says yes to come onto the podcast this evening. Yannick, can I pass it to you now? That can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why do you do what you do?
Hello and welcome, everyone. First of all, thank you for these warm words of welcome. And my name is Yannick. I am from Belgium and I have been living in the UK since 2015, so it's been 10 years now. I am trained as a social worker. I have worked with children and teenagers and trained in modern Druidry, so as a spiritual aspect of nature connection, but also in a bushcraft lineage based on a Native American Lakota tradition. And I've always had a deep love for nature and the forest in particular. And so I've kind of by accident become a self-employed artist with my own business called Forest Heart, which kind of just kind of naturally emerged out of me following my interests. And so in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I have been offering workshops at festivals like Into the Wild and online as well. And I often find that for me to come into such a magical country like the United Kingdom and to come as someone from the outside, I feel like I'm able to point out to people what's kind of hidden in plain sight. Like a lot of people have a deep longing to connect to the landscape and the kind of ancestral traditions. And for me to come in and see those things with fresh eyes, I have been fortunate to kind of speak for those voices, like um, the trees and the landscape. And I will go into this more as we progress.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Very beautiful. I love your energy, Yannick, and I think you're right. When you see things with fresh eyes, that's the thing, isn't it? If you live in your country all the time, it can become, oh yeah, it's always there, but you lose that direct that amazingness perhaps. So I love that's your angle on it. So how did it all begin then? So you're a natural person anyway. How did you get into what you do today?
Hmm.
What was that journey for you?
Yeah, so in my younger years, I did a lot of intuitive exploration. I would remember being 12 years old, I'd go into the forest, and if I came to a crossroad of three paths, and two of them are known to me, I would always choose the one that was unknown to me. And I would just play that game myself to always choose the unknown path. And so in a way, by the end of it, after a few years, I literally knew every crossroad and every path, and I go off the path and like I'd just have this natural curiosity and desire to know like what's around the next corner, like what's behind the horizon. And
That's
like a deep longing to be out like exploring and traveling.
So it's your nature then, isn't it? Really, it's not something
Mm.
necessarily you've learnt. And then what changed? How did you? What's the communication part? How did you develop that? What was the? Because you're listening to your instincts already, and you're
Yeah.
searching. And
Yeah, so initially, I just found myself in such places of such great beauty that I thought I need to like communicate this with people. I need to draw, I need to take pictures. So I would go off with my camera and sketchbooks, and I would just sit somewhere by a river, and I'd spend a day just being there and just looking around and just taking things in. And that led me eventually to quite a challenging place in my life, which was in a way the kind of catalyst or turning point in my life. We just said I got bitten by a tick that transmitted Lyme disease, which is a bacteria that is transmitted by them. And that was in 2013, like at the end of the year. And that really just forced me into a pause, really. And I ended up being ill for 2 months, like intensely ill, just like in my bed, looking at the ceiling, having to sleep for 14 to 16 hours a day. I was treated with 40 days of antibiotics, which had massive side effects. And my energy was very drained, so I could only be active for like an hour or two a day maximum.
wow,
And that would usually be the time I need just to prepare myself a meal. I was co-living with people who luckily took on all the shopping in the house, cleaning and things.
that's good.
But there was like a moment in my life where I suddenly thought, okay, I'm 28 years old and I don't know if I'm going to recover from this, like I just suddenly couldn't take it for granted anymore that I would just have a long and healthy, happy life. And that time just really opened my eyes in many ways. And yeah, there's learning through the challenges that has happened in that time. Yeah.
Just 2 months, you were out for the count for 2 months, and seeing the whole life sort of flash before you. How did you get better?
Yeah. So that was quite a slow and gradual journey. And one of the things that I noticed after being ill, like my doctor said, okay, this treatment is over. You've taken your antibiotics. You don't have Lyme disease anymore. But for my gut health to return, took 5 years. For other aspects of my health, just I think what really helped me is to understand and to accept that healing has its own rhythm and needs its own time. And even though in our society, productivity is valued so highly, I found myself in a position as a young man where I couldn't live up to societal standards. And I developed a strong hypersensitivity towards sounds, smells. Like my nervous system was very easily irritated by things. And that can be beautiful when you're in nature. Like my sensitivity in nature was already high, it just increased. But even that initially was very challenging as well because nature had always been my place of refuge. And suddenly I felt this sense of distrust because this is where I got ill. This is where I was bitten by a tick, and you can have Lyme disease many times. It's not just a thing that you can go through once. So I felt quite cut off at first. I felt like it's unsafe to be in nature. I'm too sensitive to be around people. I don't have the energy to engage in full-time work. And there was just a big process of, first of all, of accepting those limitations
Mm.
and seeing that in a healing crisis, there seems to be this principle of 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. And every time I was making a step backwards, I would be really hard on myself initially and say, now, come on, you have to get over this. You have to like get back into your full strength. And I tried to kind of push it. And like the saying like you can't push a river. There seems to be just this meandering on this healing journey that there's not always the same progress, or even with like supplements and like healing techniques, there can be yeah, just patience that's required, which is something that I didn't have when I was younger.
And I think it's something that is needed. As you say, I think it's all fast, 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 and pop a pill and have things done, whatever. And but that's not what healing is. Healing is a journey. It takes as long as it takes, two forward, one back. If it's that 5 years, and that's the natural process. And of course, we learn and we strengthen and we grow through that awareness and through that experience. And we lose everything when we just pop a pill and done. Or might feel like quick relief, but it you're missing the point, isn't it? You're not even learning anything. How can you get stronger and stop it happening again, whatever you're suffering from? So, what helped you recover? What were the recovering? How did you reconnect? What did you
Hmm.
do?
So one of the things that made a real difference for me is starting to discover natural rhythms. And I mean, it's kind of obvious that every child in kindergarten learns about the 4 seasons, and we like having activities and songs for each season and so on. And there's like a real like cultural heritage um, in Europe as a country where we experience the 4 seasons, and it's very profound and very special. But it's so close to us that it's easy to overlook how magical it actually is, that the leaves are falling down, and then all the all the trees and animals, they go underground, and all the life force goes inwards, and then it just kind of blossoms back out. And I have kind of engaged with that particular aspect of nature through what is called the 8 seasonal festivals, or the Wheel of the Year. And it is mostly practiced by people who are in some form of kind of pagan or neo-pagan spiritual system, but it is actually much more universal. And people who want to explore this don't have to subscribe to any of the other beliefs that other people hold around it. It's very much like a cultural heritage that interestingly has only been pieced together about 100 years ago, where the actual festivals, so I'm talking about the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the spring equinox, and the autumn equinox, as 4 big kind of solar festivals in a year. And then in between each one of them, there are more lunar festivals, like traditionally lunar, but nowadays they're fixed in the calendar. Like we're just coming up to Imbolc on the 1st or the 2nd of February.
Hmm.
And then there's Beltane, which is like the night of the into the 1st of May. Then we have Lammas as the first harvest, so the corn harvest. And then Samhain as the night into the 1st of November. And for me, this template has done a lot to help me have 8 moments in the year where I stop and pause, and I see myself in that bigger picture. And just to finish this thought, the festivals are very old, but to have all 8 of them together in this kind of wheel design has come about around 100 years ago,
Huh?
when Ross Nichols and Gerald Gardner, 2 friends who were very influential in that time in the Druidic and Wicca movements, have kind of taken those old festivals. Like in Scandinavia, they're much stronger with like the midwinter, midsummer, for example. And in England, traditionally, we would have celebrated Beltane and Samhain as this kind of axis across the entering the summer, entering the winter, kind of gateways. And so we are kind of fortunate at this time that we have this beautiful symbol that helps us keep track of them. Mm. Yeah, that's exactly that's if you bring it back a little bit, yes. Yeah, so there's a poster that I have created, and
If I bring it up, it'll disappear if I bring it up.
yeah, if it's closer, it
Ah.
disappears. Yeah.
But you can get, I will be giving out with this recording how to get in contact with Yannick, and you'll see his website, how to get hold of these different amazing, beautifully done posters, and so much detail. I mean, it's beyond, it gets so much detail in there. Very interesting. And I think, knowing the wheel of life, don't you find that when I know that, if I have a garden at the back, I have a big park at the back, and I like to connect and sort of notice, okay, the trees and leaves are falling or something, and then what's falling in my life, what's letting go in my life, or when it's in bulk coming in, what am I thinking about putting seeds into the ground? What's the early stages of early ideas or new change? Do you find the same sort of thing in yourself?
Hmm.
Something like that?
Yeah, that's very universal, and I think that is why um, it is something that I just invite people to remember rather than teach. It's not a teaching that you need to believe in to kind of impose onto your experience. It's just intrinsic and natural. So it's
Yeah.
paying attention to the things that are actually happening for everyone as well. And
Hmm.
that makes it very accessible as well. Like I like
Yeah.
the expression reading the book of nature, which is like a way of just every day we flip a page, and every day you kind of read what's on that page of the book of nature. And um, even though I've been foraging as well for at least 12 years, I still discover new flowers every single year. And that is something that just fills me with so much joy and connection to my inner child as well. To know
Yeah.
like this sense of wonder. Like if you keep your eyes open, there's always something new. And if it's not a
Always.
flower, it might be an insect or something unusual, even in spaces where we don't expect it. Yeah, and as an artist, I also like to align my work cycles with the year. So over the winter, I've just come out of a phase of 2, 3 months of not really talking to many people. So now this is great that we're doing the podcast today. I just send out my monthly newsletter, but otherwise for me, the winter, I just allow everything to go inwards. I just like 4 or 5 friends and family members that I stay in touch with, and everything else, like the big wide world that can just um that I can come back to. And then when it's summertime and I do the festivals and everyone is outside, then I become very extroverted and yeah, like sharing my work. And there's this kind of natural pulse.
A natural pulse, isn't it? And it's
Mm.
and it's not just behavior or noticing, it's through and through your system, isn't it? I mean, it's like when we go to sleep, our system has to slow down, shut down to rejuvenate, recoup. And if you're in tune with nature and you let it be your guide or your influence, then perhaps you're not going to start a project in the middle of winter. You're going to think about, collecting your resources and going within, meditating, or I don't know, sleeping more or whatever. Don't you think? Because how has this knowledge developed into your work? How have you put it into your work now? So these are your personal experiences,
Hmm.
but then that's going to influence other things you do, surely. How has
Yeah, I
it?
find that's the beauty of it's not just only about the year and the different um, times of the year, because every day has a moment that feels more like spring, or every week has a moment that feels more like winter, or every month has like a time that shows us these different qualities. So once we're familiar with the pattern of like the sun is rising and then it's at the height and then it goes down and then it's setting and then it's dark, once you're familiar with this pattern, we can actually apply this to all kind of things, to projects, let's say. For me, there's often like a little break of inspiration between different pieces of artwork or writing that I do, where I think like, oh, how strange, nothing is inspiring me right now. But instead of making that into a problem and thinking like, okay, I need to be productive, I need to rush into the next thing, I just noticed that moment as like a winter moment in my creative cycle. And then there's times when I'm just so full of ideas that I can't even keep up with them. And it's like the springtime where suddenly everything is growing so much that it just suddenly accelerates. And then
Gusts out
there's
of you.
moments to celebrate as well, where everything that I want to do is kind of just there and I can look at it and it's out and visible. And like that feels a little bit like the kind of harvest of, okay, now I can see like the outcome of the seeds that I have planted. And there's a moment like that in like a creative cycle, but also in relationships. I find this with friends that have been in my life for many years, that there's often a similar pattern, a time where we just message a lot and we want to have lots of conversation, but then maybe there's a bit of spaciousness and we don't hear from each other for a couple of months. And instead of kind of pathologizing or just making these things somehow wrong, or thinking of, well, I should always be available and I should always, um, I kind of drop some of those artificial storylines really that are not in alignment with how I see everything else is operating.
It affects your whole life. And do you feel like more in tune? Do you feel like you're being guided by nature, or you're more observant of your life and your behavior and yourself? Is it sort of nature's guiding you, or do you just get along with your life and just keep popping in, kind of observing, acknowledging what's happening for you in
I'd
accordance?
say like a mix of both. Yeah, like a mix of both. And then the other big area of interest of mine is around trees and tree wisdom. So
Okay,
like I
lovely.
said, I do a lot of foraging, and the
Yes.
kind of seasonal perennial plants are also very interesting. But there's something very special about the trees where I find there's oh yeah, you're showing the tree of life poster. Thank you.
It's so beautiful and amazing and intellectual and spiritual and deep and informative and in detail. It's like whichever way you want to go, you get information and then you get the spiritual side of things. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
Yeah,
You said
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, like you
trees.
say, there's so many different angles that we can approach our kind of engagement. And I try to come from different angles as well. Like there's um, a more scientific interest and like how does it actually work, and like how does a certain tree pollinate, or finding out about hazel flowers that are just like these kind of 1 millimeter small pink little things that appear in the hazel tree, and like those kind of like botanical observations. And there are certain things in nature that you can only see for like 2 or 3 weeks in the year.
Yeah,
There's like a kind of sweet spot in also in foraging, if you really want to collect your own herbs for tea, for example. There's certain things that you end up just kind of waiting for, like the hawthorn blossom in May, for example, that is best harvested before all the flies go on top of it and like start interacting with the flowers. So there's something that you can kind of, it's not just a cycle, it also repeats. And every time is slightly different. The hawthorn might be a little bit earlier or a bit later. Or if you're down in the southeast, it might be a bit earlier than if you're higher up in Scotland or something. And so there's all these kind of botanical kind of landscape skills that are kind of part of our DNA, really. Like up till
totally.
fairly recent, like people still complemented their diet or their kind of tea selection with hedgerow medicines. And then for me, there is like a spiritual side of it as well. Because if we look at our ancestors and how they view a plant, for example, or a tree, they acknowledge that there is like a physical expression of a physical tree that stands for something that goes beyond that one particular tree. Let's say the oak tree, and all that can be said about the oak, from the acorns and the hunting and the hunter-gatherers feeding themselves of acorns, and then the whole building of ships and how that's influenced the exploration, and um, all the way down to modern times, that people have recognized that it's not just a resource or like a source of nourishment for us, but there are certain characteristics.
Yeah.
Like for the oak, there's a sense of like strength and endurance and like longevity. That it's not just an artificial concept, because we can actually see it in the tree, but then it
Yeah.
points towards something that we can also find in ourselves. And that's a very interesting intersection there for me, to find out what are some like principles that we can identify in ourselves, and even values to live by, that are kind of role modeled by non-human forms of intelligence, really, that have like evolutionary adaptations that go back like millions of years. And those trees are really experts at surviving. And they're very good at surviving. You know, the oak trees evolution goes back 55 million years, um,
Wow.
till it became a distinct species of developing like tannins to protect itself from herbivores, to avoid for its leaves to be eaten. And so these beings, they have survived for 100, 200 times longer than the whole length of Homo sapiens, sapiens as a species, you know, our species. And for me, I find there's a very rewarding um, practices there that are to engage with those, yeah, like tree beings.
And they're all connected, isn't it? And I love when I go down. I'm near Wimbledon Common in South London, and I go there a lot. I went there 1,000 times when my kids were growing up. And I noticed I went to a lot of these sort of foresting workshops for the children, and we'd often do something like identify what trees do you know, or they'd get sticks before the leaves came and say, "Can you tell which tree this comes from with just a little bud on it with no leaves?" and things like that. And there's so much folklore and history and usage of how we use trees. But I loved how in some times you'd look and you could just see the hazelnut trees, or you can just see the oak trees, and or the was it the silver birch or something? I forget now. With the the catkins dangling, the
Mhm.
yellow. I think that's hazelnut, isn't it?
Yeah, this time of the
Maybe
year,
it
yeah,
was.
the hazel catkins are just coming out now,
Yeah,
yeah. But
and
many
then
trees have catkins as a way of
yeah.
dispersing their seeds.
Yeah, and each sort of season or time, they just stand out because the other ones aren't ready yet. So there's yellow catkins, and that you can see they're medium-sized trees. So oh, that's one of those, and you never forget it after that. Or forget the name, but you know what I mean. It's recognizing, and they each have their time. And but yeah, I mean the usage of trees is goes way back, but they're all connected, aren't they? With the roots and the mycelium with the fungi and there's a big lot of talk about this knowledge coming up now about coming out again, I should say, how they talk together, and you have the old grandma tree or the grandfather tree, um, and teaching the others how to be a tree, I suppose, and function, and they choose which tree goes, for example, or which tree is going to be supported and given nutrients, and it's a whole communication out there. It's
Hmm.
it's it's quite mind blowing, really, or inspiring. And they make flower people make flower essences with them, so to we can use a direct link, and we can use their leaves as well as of course their they produce so much, isn't it? The bark, the fruit, the flowers, the nuts, the leaves. There's so many ways we can engage into a tree with trees. So
Yeah,
how,
there's so much to say about this topic. I'm just gonna point something out that I find like interlinks with the healing journey that I have been on. Um, which is that the nervous system itself, like this, the brain and the spine, and the way that all those nerves kind of branch out, have actually a very similar pattern to that of a tree. And so in a way for me to find like how to regulate my nervous system, like spending time with trees, especially very old trees, has been something that has been deeply healing for me. And I'm just going to briefly explain like how anyone listening to this can approach this. Where for me, like tree communication is actually something that is very easy. The only difficulty about it is that we are often too fast because we can just be like, okay, I'm just gonna quickly go to the shop and then I'm gonna drive and then I'm gonna send a quick message. And now I have 20 minutes to sit with this tree and I want maximum results for like minimum amount of time input. And we're trying to be efficient and kind of all those things means our brain waves are kind of going like this, like up and down, like very fast. And if you think of the state that the tree is in, that kind of wave would be more like a slow up and a slow down. It's just more like sun is rising, I'm opening to light, like light is falling on my leaves, sun is setting, and the energy kind of goes down. It's like a breath in a way, like the day and the night is like the tree is just like taking in light and going into the ground, taking in light and like sending the energy back down. And
love
for
that. Really beautiful. I love that.
and the easiest way to get into the kind of tree time really is to it's just to slow down. Like a lot like even if I just have half an hour, I imagine that I have all the time in the world. And that's a kind of like a little micro skill that we can practice is to learn how to get timeless, even if we do have something else to do on a day. And it's maybe unrealistic for people to take like 2, 3 hours, but just to say, okay, for those 20 minutes, I'm going to pretend that I have all the time in the world. And then there's no goal to reach. There's no one who's going to get a special uh, sign of recognition for being the best at communicating with trees. It's just we can take the competition and the goal-oriented way of doing it out of the equation and just simply approach the tree just with pure childlike curiosity, just for the pure joy of taking it in and connecting. And if you do this while slowing down, I often end up sitting with my spine against the trunk. And there's a beautiful practice we can do where we inhale up the spine and then exhale down the spine. And if that feels right, I can then like ask the tree if it's okay for me to fuse my body with the body of the tree. So when I'm inhaling, I'm feeling the energy of the roots through the stem, through my back, like up into the branches. And then as I exhale, I find the energy goes back down through the trunk into the roots and also down my spine. And
Beautiful.
even on days where I had very little energy because I was exhausted from the things that I had to do while I was still recovering, I find those kind of moments have really helped me to understand um, how to regulate myself, really, which then has
Beautiful.
a knock-on effect and is of benefit to everything else I'm trying to achieve with my time.
Absolutely. And so you were suffering about 5 years, and was it two forward and one back? And then what? But you must have. But you were saying like How did you reconnect? You're worried that you're going to get bitten again.
Hmm.
What got you over that?
Yeah, so that was actually a really important part of my healing journey because, as you can tell from what I just shared, is like nature has always been like a sanctuary for me. And suddenly there's this dangerous bacteria that is like in my sanctuary and I can't be there anymore and so on. So that was very big for me to feel like cut off, almost like betrayed by nature or something, where I felt like this is so unfair, like I can't feel at home here or something. So it took me a while, but I was determined to make this into a valuable lesson for myself. So I learned everything I could about tick prevention and understanding where they are, what they do, how to best notice them when they're on me. And I just kind of reframed this in my mind to say, if I'd grown up in the Amazon, there would be snakes and spiders and whatever and jaguars. And if I'd grown up in Australia, there would be like crocodiles and spiders and so on. So, because we have eliminated all of the natural predators like bears and wolves, like anything really that could have been even remotely dangerous to us, we have kind of removed from the landscape. There's a sense of balance in knowing that there's like a give and take in nature, and it is up to us to be vigilant and take care of ourselves. But there's a way of doing that without being in fear. So I have actually created a free 90-minute video on tick prevention that I
Amazing.
share with anyone who wants to see it. It's available through my website, and which is forestheart.co.uk. And so we can also attach this maybe to the email that goes out to people afterwards,
Yep.
because that for me is like a way of um, turning turning a burden into a blessing, or turning a wound into a medicine or something, when you can kind of take this, okay, this has happened to me, and now I can show other people how to prevent having to go through these things themselves. So there can be a medicine in that. And eventually I got so good at feeling the ticks and discovering them when they were on me that I would even challenge myself walking through the woods in like shorts and just barefoot and deliberately walking through the bracken because I knew the
Wow.
ticks were there. And I just challenged myself to walk through, have know that I have a few on me, sit down and remove them, and just build that trust in my body. And then to build that relationship to the kind of instinctual body wisdom that I know my body can tell me if I have something on me that is not good for me. Um, and that then again like translates into other situations that if we switch on that part of the body intelligence in one area of our lives, it will naturally start informing other areas as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I teach how to be pain free, and I say to people, like, you focus on one thing, you clear that, but it's focusing on one thing, it actually affects the entirety of you. You learn something one place, but it automatically affects the whole system, your whole system. We work as one, don't we? Thoughts, feelings,
Hmm.
sensation, senses. Amazing. And so how do people what do people come to you for? Do they want to come to a forest healing session, or how do you form your work? What do you offer, and what does that look
Hmm.
like work?
Yeah, so there are different ways that people can engage with what I have created and with me as well. So ones are like the kind of resources, like the posters you just shared. If people wanted to learn about kind of nature-based spirituality, I have a foraging calendar, for example, as well. And these are just resources that people can use to complement books or online resources to unlock those teachings, but just to bring them into the space a little bit more and just make a decision and commitment to learn about something and integrate this into their lives. And then in terms of the tree wisdom, I have created a little library of videos that go into different species. Like I have a video on the oak tree, I have a video on the birch tree, and I have a video on the beech tree, for example. There are like I think 14 different ones. That was my lockdown project some years ago when we all had to be at home. And
Made good use of it.
yeah, exactly. I took the time just to make those videos that are also available through my website. And then I work one-to-one with people, usually just online, unless it's convenient for people to be, if they're close enough to me, I prefer in person. But
How do you
um,
run it online? How do you connect people with nature online?
yeah, so the online sessions is more to help people connect with their own natural wisdom,
Oh,
or people can go out and have their nature connection experiences and then come back and unpack things with me. And then I share more practices, tools. I help people to go deeper into their own journey. So I never work in like a prescriptive way of saying everyone needs to do this, because I don't believe in this. But I think that if people who work with me, they say, wow, I feel really awkward talking to other people about my connection with nature, because I have all these feelings and these things happening, and I see like parallels between like a dead tree and my grandma's passing, and I had this cry in nature and so on. Like some people would feel a bit crazy to share that with their colleagues or family members. But knowing that there are other people who will understand, and not just understand, but also able to unpack like layers of meaning and symbolism, and maybe offer like guided meditations and things around those important moments to help that journey, that nature connection journey, to feel more held and real in a way. So we're not just like the only one doing it. But I also work with people who are generally in times of transition. I've worked a lot with men who have gone through relationship breakups, divorce. I've worked a fair amount with women whose children have grown up and are leaving home, and they are kind of in a time of reorientating, rediscovering their interests. And so, and I've also worked with children and teenagers quite extensively as a social worker.
yeah.
So they don't come onto an online call, but then I can draw on that experience when I'm talking to parents, for example, as well.
Wonderful. And so how does somebody know that they need you, or you might be the right person for them? What are they suffering? They're feeling like they're going through a transition. They want a sort of natural approach. So you help them back into their journey to tune in with themselves, to find their way within themselves, with their own rhythms. And if they want to learn more about trees and tree wisdom as well, and if they just sort of lost themselves or something, they just want to learn about, to establish a good relationship with themselves, their own journey, to know if they're on the right path within themselves. Am I getting the right sort of ballpark?
Hmm. Yeah, like the nature connection element in that is it can feature, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Sometimes it's much more about inner inquiry and yeah, just unpacking things in like a confidential space as well. I find a lot of people have things that they need to say to someone, but they don't necessarily know where or how to say it. And so I offer a confidential space, and that can be sometimes people just want to connect for an hour because they feel drawn to me. I guess most people um, just say that they just like feel that it might be like a good match, and then um, I have a sliding scale pricing system to keep my sessions available, and usually I never follow the same format for every single person. I try and like develop from all the training that I received in different modalities, to kind of try and find out what is right for this person in front of me. Yeah, and that can be like a little sequence of sessions, or yeah, some people just have a 3, 4 sessions with me, and then maybe once or twice a year when they know of if I need some like deeper time to reflect, then I know that I can reach out. So yeah, there has its own cycles as well for people. Yeah.
Wonderful. And we're just about to open up to questions to ask Yannick. Get your questions ready or type it in the chat box and we'll bring you either Yannick can read out the questions or we can unmute you and you can have a good chat. And Yannick, so can you tell us perhaps somebody that you've taken through a journey and what state were they in and what happened and what was the result? Can you think of somebody you could share? Would that be okay to share an example? What you did
Mhm.
with some.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so someone that comes to mind is someone who is um very overwhelmed at first, and very much like the mind is trying to solve it. It's like the I'm suffering and there needs to be a quick solution, because if I don't get well soon, then all these things are gonna go wrong in my life. So I'm gonna pay someone to fix me. And then usually I help people to deconstruct this and first start off with like practices for people to come back to themselves, connect with the body and the body wisdom, and just get out of that kind of mind loop and the stress for a moment. And just to hear people out first at the beginning in this kind of scenario, to hear him out as a man. He actually has gone through a lot of very challenging experiences that he never acknowledged to himself, like how much he'd actually been through. Um, and I then find, like, as we go, like it's like peeling the layers of an onion. Um, and usually there's always gold and treasures in the centers for some reason. That whatever processes people think they're having, and how like inconvenient they are, or how they think that this is such bad timing because I have to do all these things. What I find is so surprising is that in any process that I have guided with people, it says always some gold and some treasure, and then it's not me pointing that out. Ideally I like to help someone to like guide someone to find out what their goal is for themselves. So that for me gives me a lot of satisfaction when I see someone having like an insight or realization, something that lands with them, where they know that they had a breakthrough, and then once that has happened, there's no return to like the previous stage. So in that situation, then someone starts implementing small like self-care practices, small like moments of nature connection to their day. That can be as little as 10 minutes a week. I usually then see how people kind of stabilize, and then eventually they come to a point where they're like, "Oh, I think I'm on my own 2 feet again, and I
Wonderful.
think I don't need you anymore." And then that's when um, I feel like I've done
Wow.
my job very well if I can guide people without creating a sense of dependency on me, by encouraging people to connect with their own wisdom that I believe is already in them.
Absolutely beautiful. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be, isn't it? That we all have our inner guidance and our wisdom and our own healing system. But sometimes, as you say, we get lost. We get triggered mentally, or life gets too challenging, or symptoms, or whatever. So, and I can see that, through your life journey, you've created that pathway, you've walked the walk, you've come to a healing process and understood things, and then backed by all this beautiful connection and knowledge by nature. And then that's what you offer for guidance to people. It's really lovely. And we are rushing around like nutters all the time and achievement, got to achieve this and pay the bills and whatever it is. And we lose connection and what's the purpose actually? What are we actually here for? I love this self-observation of the seasons in your day, seasons in your body. I think it's so beautiful. And does anyone want to ask some questions of Yannick? Question time. Vienna, Nathaniel, Elsa, Amanda, do you want to ask some questions? Do you have a burning question for Yannick? So, you said Vienna, yeah? Did you want to? Yes, absolutely. You just unmute yourself there. That's it.
No, it's not really a question. I just thought I'd like to say hello. So I can't remember how, came across your work on trees and kind of bought one tree meditations, I think, when you were doing them in sessions, came across those. So it's some years ago now, and kind of collected them for when life was quiet and I could do it all in a sequence. And that's only just beginning to happen, because must have been locked down, and then I moved house, and lots of things happened, but all part of a really good transition. So when I saw about this evening, I just wanted to come and meet you, really, rather than emails or what's on your website. So I enjoyed listening to you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for introducing yourself, and how lovely. I hope you have plenty of time soon to connect with the videos and then the trees themselves.
Yeah, well, they will be very much part of the life that have been able to create now in the Northeast, and I'm lucky. I'm no longer working more than a little bit each week. I'm growing many trees as part of a wide project to plant trees back out in the wild. I've got about 200 baby trees in my garden.
Oh, wow.
Land to connect with, and my own work that I do over the last 10 years has become more and more nature connected. So when I am working, I'm being nourished, and hopefully others are finding nourishment through that. So yeah,
Wow.
it's a lovely journey, and it still has plenty of places to go. So
I was
Wow, that sounds really
wondering,
lovely. Like that setup that you just described with I can kind of see it in my mind's eye with the 200 little saplings or seedlings, and yeah, what beautiful work. Yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. And yeah,
thank you, Yannick. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Vienna. And Nathaniel, did you want to say something?
yeah, I was wondering if Yannick was going to do more of the online tree. You can see your calendar there
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, lovely.
on January, the silver birch. I was wondering if you were going to do any more of maybe tree
Mhm.
wisdom webinars.
Yeah, so at the moment I don't have anything planned. I'm doing a little bit like I'm doing this evening with the
Yeah,
podcast, with the tree meditations. I haven't actually planned them for this year because kind of doing something slightly unusual for this summer. Instead of going to do my festival season, I'm going to be living and working at a retreat center in Wales as the kind of gardener slash tree person. So that's gonna happen in a few weeks. So yeah, like the online time is kind of gone into a bit into the background at the moment.
yes, fair enough. But
Mhm.
that was great, those webinars and tree wisdom. I did 3 or 4 of them, and then I got your calendar. Um, but I was also here to say that I'm a bit stuck, having had a
Mhm.
stroke. And well, it's difficult anyway. I've got control of the pain, but that's means I have to very much pace my days and not do very much, a bit like the Lyme disease,
Mm-hmm.
and accept this new normal. But it's very difficult because I can't be active without becoming very dizzy and headaches, and so I'm slightly stuck in a rut.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to hear everything, your advice. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. That must be really difficult to be in this at the moment and feeling so limited by
That's it.
what you're describing. Yeah,
It's difficult.
yeah,
I've accepted it, but not entirely. So there we are. Okay, thank you.
But you have the contact for Yannick if you want to take things further and book some sessions
I
or
do,
take things
and I could maybe you could help me with that as well, looking at your website.
Yeah, you're welcome. I offer free
So I have,
consultations, so book one and we'll chat. So lots of options for you. And the part of why I run these podcasts, when I started the podcast, it was because I really felt that gap between the knowledge I didn't have. I don't know about trees and knowledge and Yannick's knowledge and all the other people that are on the podcast. And so there are lots of options apart from my own pain-free method and Yannick's too. There are lots of other wonderful, amazing people with so much wisdom of natural methods. So yeah, do book a free consultation with me or get in contact with Yannick or any of the others that you see, because there's plenty of help out there.
yeah.
Just find the right one for you, isn't it? The one that works for you and is the right thing for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll chat. Wonderful, Nathaniel. Wonderful. I'll put you on mute there. Elsa, did you want to say something? Do you unmute yourself? Did you click that button?
Yeah. Any, can you hear me?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to thank you at all you told just yet, because the recognition of the long time it takes to recover from Lyme. It took me also a year of 5, 6, and I always thought, oh, I'm unusual long to recover. But when I hear your story, I feel it's normal. I had to take my time, and yeah, it's an how you call it, a confirmation and recognition. So I did the right thing, and thank you for your story and sharing, and yeah, wonderful. Just
Mm.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that as well. That feels like sense of like reassurance or something that you're not the only one, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes when we're suffering or something, we can think like, well, everyone is doing so well, everyone is doing hundreds of things, everyone is like getting over it so quickly, and we're the only ones who, but the more I get to know people, I know that many people, if not most, struggle with something, even if it's not physical or it's not obvious, that there are always like bigger cycles. And I find like in the modern world, there's just a overemphasis on like, oh, look at these people. They're always healthy and they're always happy and they always have money and they're always, everything they do succeeds and so on. And I think it's just not based in reality, really.
And the thing is with symptoms, as you say, we're so sort of immediate sort of lifestyle that we live that I think we can get rid of something and off we go. But then that's not the true nature of healing. And I find I don't know if you find the same, Yannick. You're talking about sort of inner rhythms and things, and tuning into your own path and things. I find that I specialize in long-term chronic pain, and it's just where it begins. So they come to me with, say for example, arthritis or migraines or something, and for me that's like, well, that's the beginning of the story. That's not the story, that's the end, tip of the
Stop.
iceberg. And it often takes 5-10 years to go through deep changes. And what have you been through that's put you there in the first place? It's a whole inner story. It's like the whole trunk of a tree and roots into the ground stuff. It's not pick a cherry and off you go. It's not how it functions. What created that cherry? What created that issue in the first place?
And also the spiritual part of it, and going down to the fear of the forest, what used to be the safe place, and suddenly it's dangerous there. And that was the most important healing for me, to heal that pain, to go through the fear, to go through the fear. Yeah.
Yeah, I can very much relate. It's very intense at first. And I think to take it back to the trees just for a minute, like when a tree loses a big branch or something, then like the wood is exposed, and the bacteria and the fungus comes in, and they start like decomposing the tree as it is still growing and thriving, and it can still live hundreds of years, but it won't be the same tree anymore, because it has like the healing. What does healing mean in terms of, do we want to go back to how something was before? Then that is never really gonna be possible. But if the healing can be in like a new level of acceptance and peace to a new condition that hasn't existed before, then that can be like in a way more healed, in the way of healing as like wholeness, because we maybe gained deeper insight into our own sense of wholeness through the disease, or through what we think might have gone wrong or something. And I really admire that in old trees that are like some of the oldest oak trees that are like 700-800 years old, and it's just like like a hollow chamber, with often like half of it is already completely decomposed, but it's still producing acorns, and it's still having leaves every spring, and it's still. And I think if we don't compare that to the kind of little healthy little sapling that still had all its branches on it, then that can reduce some of the suffering for me personally as well.
Absolutely. Observations and how and allowing that effect and awareness to you. So we have come to the top of the hour, and if you want to take things further and ask Yannick more questions, please do get in contact. And if you're thinking about getting some help or buying some of his produce, all these beautiful things he's produced and wonderful meditations and all sorts of these charts and things, really, really well worth going to the website and getting in touch. So Yannick, just to close the call this evening, could you give some kind of tip to take us off into the wander and follow into the night? What tip or guidance or suggestion would you like to say? And I'd leave you with the last words. Thank you. Just to say thank you. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening, and for all those watching the replay too. Thank you so much, Yannick, for sharing your wisdom and inspiring story. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, and thank you to everyone who has listened. And I'd like to finish with the words of a Native American elder who said, when times speed up, slow down.
Perfect. Thank you.